Well, Karen, we are a week away from staring at some turkey, perhaps staring at some relatives, and perhaps we have to travel to get to those face-offs, if you will. Karen Carney from Will Rogers World Airport joins us today for some travel tips and advice. Thanks so much for stopping in.
Well, thanks for having me. It is a busy time of year.
It is a busy time.
It's very concentrated for Thanksgiving.
Absolutely, and let's just start with the travel. I see gas prices are a little bit lower this holiday season than what we've seen in the past. How does that affect air travel?
Well, normally you would think it wouldn't. People decide they're going to fly, and if you're going a long distance to the east or west coast, you're not going to make a choice to drive. But for some of those shorter haul markets, our fares are high in Oklahoma City. We've got a great business climate, which is kind of driving some of those fares. So some of those people that are kind of on the border, like, is it cheaper for me to just drive? It does impact us a little bit.
Of course, the incident in Paris is in everybody's minds, and frankly, the incident's still unfolding. And a lot of that affects travel. What are you guys seeing at Will Rogers World Airport? And any advice for people, perhaps traveling abroad?
Well, we've received a lot of questions, obviously, about if we've escalated any security. And I guess one of the things I want to point out is that Will Rogers is not a port of entry into the United States. So that kind of changes the complexion of things that are done security-wise. However, I always like to remind people that we've had a very elevated level of security at the airport for numerous years. We've just maintained it. I think one of the big things for now for people that are traveling, it's, be observant. Sometimes when you're traveling, you have a tendency to get in on your own little world, and if you see something weird, report it. You can, if there's not a police officer around, report it to a TSA officer, or we've got a big campaign with our employees as well. See something, say something.
You're right, I travel all the time. In fact, I'm going to Mexico this weekend, so it'll be interesting to see the international hoops to jump through there. But I'm like a lot of travelers, put in the earbuds, or just, you're on your phone. You're in your own world when you're at an airport.
Yes, and that advice really goes for any place, not just airports. But I think, if there's an unattended bag just sitting out somewhere and there's nobody, some of us, we have had a tendency to walk away from our bag. But if nobody's coming back, you should call that in or tell somebody about it and then let somebody else deal with it. Once you report it, you don't have to deal with it. But
it's interesting to hear the overhead speakers at the airports, attention to the concourse, someone has left a belt. If you're missing a belt, so you'll hear those announcements occasionally, from TSA or whoever. All right, travel tips. What can we do to ease our travel this holiday season?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is a very concentrated period of time, the Thanksgiving holiday. People will start leaving on Wednesday, and actually Sunday is the busiest day of the year. Everybody comes back, yeah. So, what you want to do is try to ease your process, especially through the checkpoint. Make sure you get there in time. I know we talk about that so much, but people sometimes have a tendency to just think of the checkpoint as their only place where congestion could be. But, the ticket counter, if you're checking bags, those lines can back up pretty quickly. You could be there 15, 20 minutes. Parking, you may have a little longer time parking. So just factor that in. And I know, I see it every day where you can come to the airport and there's not a line anywhere. And you can get through and get in 5 minutes. And that's what everybody wants it to be all the time. But you don't want to miss a flight at this time of year because you may not get rebooked, which
that's
no
tremendous
turkey.
Advice there. Yeah, you're right. It is amazing. The parking garage does fill up at Will Rogers. I try to get into that overhead covered parking. It will. Something else. I was in DFW a couple weeks ago, frankly lost my car. And I was like, why didn't I just take a picture of where I parked? Silly things like that, but it'll save you some time getting back out of there.
Well, and just, we are looking at a new parking, it's a management system, and so it will help. We don't have it in for the holidays, but we are looking at getting something that would provide apps and things to help you find your car and do some real-time kind of space management. Speaking of apps, it seems like more and more people are using the mobile boarding passes. Then you see a lot more of that. Does that help? Absolutely. That's probably one of the tips. If you download the app for the airline on which you're flying. TSA has a great app. It can actually tell you the status of the checkpoints at different airports, including Will Rogers. But they also have a little, can I bring, you type in, can I bring my samurai knife, or whatever. And, it will tell you, you can bring it in your check bag or your carry-on or neither or both. So it's a great app and a tool, and it just will help make your life easier as a traveler. And the more, especially if you're not checking a bag, the mobile boarding pass is a great deal.
It helps so much. You can zip right through.
Yep.
A couple more topics for you real fast. Real ID, that was in the headlines quite a bit. What does that mean, and can I still travel with my regular ID?
Well, you can travel with your Oklahoma driver's license when you're on a plane for at least another year. The Real ID Act was passed several years ago as part of the 9/11 Commission recommendations. State of Oklahoma is not yet compliant. I know that there is movement and talk in the legislature for this session to kind of figure out how to move forward, so hopefully we're not facing the same drama, whatever, in a year.
All right, but for now, we can travel with a driver's license.
Absolutely.
And then changes coming to Will Rogers, new terminal?
Yes.
Or changes to a terminal?
Yes, we're getting ready to embark on a terminal expansion. In fact, we're in the design process. We have a concept now. And I guess the good news about that is it kind of goes back at what's happening in Oklahoma City. Things are booming. We want to be prepared when we get additional airlines or existing airlines want to add more space. It's a multi-year process, so we want to be able to do that. So we're going to add 4 new gates, redo the checkpoints so it's all centralized, and we're bringing back an observation deck.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Karen Carney with Will Rogers World Airport. Best of luck this coming holiday season, and happy holidays to you.
Same to you. Thanks so much.